What is good, Joetown? Now, I know we haven't put out content on this channel in a good while, but that is about to change. My good friend Zook and I have been thinking about the content we wanted to produce while waiting for a new Monster Hunter game to come out. And we had some great ideas, if I can say so myself. Starting with this series, we're calling Advanced Hunting 101, where the aim is to teach you everything you need to know to take your game to the next level. There's a lot of guides for beginners out there, but not really much to teach you all the things that come after that. And that's right where we want to get into. We want to teach you everything that can improve you from being a good player, an okay player that mastered the basics, to becoming really good and being able to stand your ground and destroy every monster in your path. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I quickly want to announce that on release of Monster Hunter Rise, I will be doing a 24-hour live stream release party over on twitch.tv/Vince from Joe's Bros, where I'll be playing through the game, giving out all the advice I can. If you're interested, check by. Link is going to be put down in the description below. Now, this is the first of hopefully many videos in this series. This video is going to be very, very important to understand the basics of becoming really good in Monster Hunter. There's two reasons I decided to start off with a video. A guide to numbers sounds kind of frightening to most people, but it is simply essential to understand all the numbers in this game. Now, you won't have to do a lot of math yourself. Other people are going to do that. But it's important that you understand the concepts and you understand why people build certain weapons for raw, why they do it for element, why they take certain weapons to certain hunts, and so on and so on. Preparing like that will make most of your hunts at least 50% easier just from bringing the optimal gear you can. Now, the other one is a bit spoilery, not really, but I intend to release this video the week before the game actually comes out, so I'm gonna issue a slight spoiler warning here. It's really just a small menu thing, but some people might consider it a spoiler, so if you'd be bothered by that, turn off the video now and come back when you actually got the game. Good? Everybody gone that doesn't want to hear it? Okay. Here we go. So, some copies got accidentally shipped early by Amazon, and the hit zone sheets are now in the hunter notes instead of the usual weak spot diagrams. Now, if you're not understanding what I'm talking about, no problem, you'll understand in just a second. Obviously, I can't show this screenshot right now for embargo reasons, so I'm gonna use images from Monster Hunter World. Now, this is the weak spot diagram from the hunter nodes in Monster Hunter World, and this is the hit zone chart that we've been using from external databases to get a lot more accurate information on the monster. It may look a bit complicated at the start, but it really isn't. The first three lines are just separating into severed, blunt, and shot damage, and then the next 5 lines are separating fire, water, thunder, ice, and dragon damage. Pretty simple at this point, right? And then they just list off the different hit zones on the monster, and you know exactly where your preferred target on the monster is. All in all, these hit zone charts just have a lot more detailed information and a lot more accurate information for you to go off of to select the optimal weapons for your hunt. Where this comes a lot more in handy is looking at the elemental hit zones. Because you see, the only good spacers on Fatalis in this example to hit with elemental weapons are the head. Everything else is kind of bad, which wouldn't be indicated by the 3-star dragon weakness it shows on the world damage diagram. Now that you know about hit zone value, you may ask yourself, so now that I know that I'm good on numbers, right? No, not quite yet. There is a few more numbers that I have to explain. I'll try to keep it as simple and to the point as I can. So let's take a look at the damage number that pops up on your screen whenever you hit a monster. While we're looking at how this gets put together, is for you to know all the details so you understand how to maximize your damage. Okay, the formulas are as follows. Your true raw times your sharpness modifier times your crit damage on critical hit times the motion value times the hit zone value equals the number for raw damage. And the true element times the elemental sharpness modifier times crit element if you have the skill on your armor set times elemental hit zone values times the attack's elemental modifier. Now, don't worry about actually using these formulas, you most likely won't. I'm just using these to show off the numbers in this game you need to be aware of. Now, we already went over the hit zone values, and the other ones are explained pretty easily. First up, true raw. Now, up until now, the true raw was not displayed in-game, but instead shown with a so-called bloated value. I don't know what the reason for it was, but good news on that end. For Rise, they got rid of it, and we get the true raw on our weapons, as well as the true element. Now, why are these important? Because it's essential to calculate the effective raw damage, or EFR for short, which is the main stat that is used to compare the raw damage of different armor sets. It is basically your true raw multiplied and added with all the external modifiers you get from your gear, like attack boosting skills, crit boost skills, your affinity, etc. Don't worry, you'll not have to do this math yourself. There's usually tools out there that will do the math for you just plugging in your gear. Getting the highest EFR you can while still having all the comfort you need, since we're not speedrunning quite yet, we're still gonna keep some comfort around, is essential for good sets on raw damage focused weapon, and will subsequently make your hunts a lot smoother and easier than they would be otherwise. Next up, the sharpness modifiers, elemental as well as regular raw sharpness multipliers. They're on screen right here, and they just do what it says, like they multiply the damage depending on your sharpness. That's why keeping your sharpness up and sharpening on a hunt is so important. Not just because you bounce, but because your damage drops off significantly if you don't keep up your sharpness. Then the crit damage modifiers and the critical element modifiers come based off of the skills crit boost and critical element, and they modify your weapon's raw or elemental damage on hit respectively when you crit. Pretty simple too. And then we get to the most confusing part, what most people don't really understand, even though it's pretty easy. Next thing are the motion values. What are motion values? So they look something like this. Now these are numbers from the Magnum Model beta, more specifically some of the hunting horn motion value. Now if you look at the spreadsheet, it looks like a clusterfuck, but it really just shows how much of your true raw damage gets used on a certain attack. Think of it like Pokemon, right? Every attack has a certain attack stat to it, and that's how hard it hits. Like, fast weapons tend to have low motion values, and really hard-hitting weapons tend to have higher motion value. That's really just about the gist of it. And then there's also the elemental modifiers in there. Depending on these values, players decide which weapons are good for raw and which are good for element. Now, again, you don't have to worry about learning these yourself. It's just important to understand why certain weapons are built for elemental and some are built for raw damage. Now, that you have a basic grasp on all the numbers you need to be aware of, the question that's left is, why is it so essential for me to know all of this if I want to become a really good player? Well, that answer is surprisingly simple. I mean, understanding these numbers enables you to always bring optimal gear and set the optimal conditions for your fight, making your hunts a lot easier in the process than they were before. When it comes to making sets, however, that's a whole nother video, so that's something y'all can look forward to in the future as well. If you made it to this point, Thank you all for watching, and hopefully I'll talk to you again in the next video. Until then, have fun and happy hunting!